Well, the Canadian Coast Guard is celebrating its 60th anniversary in 2022. The Richmond Sentinel, in line and in partnership with my show, Our City Tonight, we're going to do a two-part spotlight on the wonderful work these fine folks have done. We're out at the Canadian Coast Guard Sea Island Base. I am joined by Paul Tobin, who is the officer in charge. Sir, thank you for having us here today and getting us access to everything that we've been enjoying. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about, of course, you guys have been here since 1968. I want to begin by some of the things that really I found fascinating. People know about the sea and rescue, of course, and all the great work you do there. But what really impressed me is in this modern day 21st century is the amount of environmental work you guys do. You're sensitive to the environment and the concerns, but also you said to me that right now as we're doing this, you guys are in, what did I want to make this right? The science work season of the year. You take it from there.
Yeah, like I said, we've been here since 1968. Our primary role here is search and rescue, but over the years with the studies with global warming and especially around the Vancouver area with the Fraser River estuaries, we've gotten more involved with providing scientific research, and we're contracted by the University of British Columbia and National Research Centre of Canada, and we've had a program almost over 30 years where we do water sample testing with the university, where we go and deploy. We have special equipment on board and we take a science team, and we've been monitoring the straits for microplastics, heavy metals in the water, in the water column, and some of the grasses and the mud flats when they're totally dry, because around our Sturgeon Banks area. So we've been doing that for over 30 years, and they've been collecting data for a lot of years on that. So they're monitoring the situation. And one of the biggest, I mean, they have Iowa sewage treatment plant that's right off the end of the runway there. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant state of monitoring to make sure anything healthy is the water is being healthy for all the habitat.
Especially where we are right now, am I accurate in saying that, like, the Fraser River, kind of the mouth to the Pacific? I mean, we've got environmentally sensitive lands across the river, which are protected. You guys are constantly monitoring that as well.
That's correct, yeah. Right now there's an eelgrass study down just by Sandheads Light Station up against, I guess, Gary Point in Richmond. There's an identified area there. I don't know how many acres it is, but that's monitored closely right now, where they're looking at the eelgrass and the impact of any kind of environmental conditions that are changing it with maybe global warming. So it's being monitored closely. A lot of people don't see that, that's happening because unless you're out on the water and know these areas are being monitored. So that's just one of the tasks that we do over the years. And I mean, the Fraser River is one of the busiest waterways in Canada, outside the St. Lawrence, of course, where there's traffic going to and from not only the commercial fishing, but lots of the marine traffic with the car ferry, the carport, Surrey Docks, and then the car station where all the cars come from Japan and overseas that are offloaded there. So it's a heavy traffic area.
You know, you corrected me on something earlier. It was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe a little longer, when they shut down the Kitsilano base downtown. You used to reopen that recently, but they're more focused on the harbor itself. Your territory is a lot bigger, and not that there's a competition or anything, but the duties you guys have are fairly numerous.
For sure, yeah. Just because of the capability of the all-weather machine and the speed and our amphibious capability. For instance, if you have a rescue happening around a conventional boat can't get into shallows, or around rocks or reefs where the boaters happen to run into trouble, the hovercraft is the only one that can be deployed to get there to safely evac the people off the vessels. And just because of response time and our capabilities, we have the only capable dive program on board. We have 5 divers on board, so we're multi-tasked platform. Whereas a conventional vessel will just have a patrol area of just English Bay or Howe Sound, some of those areas. And they can get into some of the congested spots like Falls Creek area, where we don't want to take the big hovercraft in there. It's more efficient and safer to take a small boat. So that's where their area is. And it's a major city, so they have the focal point of, you go to any major city in the world, there's always a Coast Guard presence there as well. So, and that's been operating effectively for a number of years, and it was reestablished because they felt that they needed that need down in that area, whereas we have a 60-mile radius, and we can be in that 60 miles, we can pretty well be there anywhere in an hour.
You were talking about the dive team. Was it right to say that you're the only full dive team, rescue team in Canada?
For the Canadian Coast Guard, yeah. As a Canadian Coast Guard is a national program, but we've defined at Sea Island Base a unique operating area just because of the amount of boating traffic and the risk for any kind of, like there's a lot of roadways that are close to the water for, say, cars going into the water, and just boaters and just different kind of events. So they did the numbers over the years and defined us as we could have an impact to save lives. So we've been funded for a fully supportive dive team on board, and which is pretty unique in Canada. Some of the training is very specific to what we do here for going into confined spaces, overturned vessels, which are inherently very dangerous to enter for risk of entanglement, and to safely get, our motto is safety first, service always. So safety is our prime target for what we do. So we were always looking at ways to do it better and make sure it's done safely first. So that's kind of why we're funded for a fairly advanced dive penetration team here, which is the only one in Canada.
What were you telling me earlier too about with an incident, a boating accident or something, where a boat has flipped over? You've got the science now to allow for spaces of air to last.
Yes, it's mostly for the divers themselves. We on the hovercraft we have unlimited air supply, rather than having scuba tanks, which if you got trapped in a vessel, you could potentially run out of air. Yeah. So here we have unlimited air supply, so the diver can be down unlimited amounts of time to a certain degree. It's all risk assessed before we enter the spaces. If there's a full survey done, and then the dive supervisor will take over how many divers is going to send in, what's the criteria. So like I say, it's all about safety. We do have different deployments on board where we can supply called lift bags, where if a car's in the water, we can fully support it with special equipment that go around the car and get it out of the water so it's safe and we can tow it to shore. So we're all capable with all different unique aspects. We have a dive supervisor that's in charge of that. So he's they train for that all the time, and they're quite proficient at doing these penetrant, and they train for it all the time, which is inherently highly risky. But it's all done safely and for patients, and they can actually take air in to somebody. If they find somebody in a closed space, they can bring them air with the special tanks that they have in apparatus. So, and we also have ROVs, remote control operated vehicles with cameras and manipulating arms. So we're just doing a search now up in the Fraser River. They think there's a plane that's been missing for a couple of years there. So we're up there right now. They're defining different areas, the RCMP, and we'll go in with our side scan sonar and we'll search the bottom for them. So we're doing that right now.
I want to wrap up with, again, going back to the region you cover. It's pretty vast. Like, you can go high up to the north part of Vancouver Island, or south to the border and beyond if needed. Yeah,
we're multi-taskable. I've taken this craft, one sitting behind her, CA. It's the Salish name is Friends, and we've been up as high as Ketchikan for a joint U.S.-Canadian pollution exercise. Right. We train every year. Different locations, so we can go. We have about a 10-hour duration before we have to get some fuel. So in 10 hours we could be up from here as high north as Campbell River, right? And then we'll fuel up there and we can keep going up the strait. So yeah, we don't do a lot of heavy offshore stuff, but anything in the inside passage from here to Alaska, we're quite capable of doing it. Last year we took the craft, was a trial run. We went up as far as Ucluelet and Tofino. We're there for like 7 days, and we're doing some particular navigation work up there. So, and that was we left here at 7 in the morning, and we got into Ucluelet at noon. So it was pretty fast, effective. So yeah,
that's great. We're now in a place called the Skirt Shop. Before we head to the hovercraft, the rubber that is the base for the hovercraft, Paul's going to talk to us about that right now.
Yeah, these are called fingers. These are the magic part of the hovercraft that people don't see. There's 113 of these underneath the hovercraft, and they're like soles of your shoes. When your shoes wear out, you buy a new pair of shoes. Same with the hovercraft. When these wear out after about 800 hours, annually, about every year, we replace 113 of these. We save big cost saving here. We buy the raw stock rubber, and our machine here, we have a laser 3D multicam machine that cuts them out automatically. So in the old days, we'd have to cut these out by hand with a razor knife and then pound all the holes in there. And so it was real labor intensive. Like before we got the machine, it would take 2 people a full day and they could make 1 of 8 of these. This machine over here makes 113 in about 2 days.
And so this basically we're looking at right now.
Specialized rubber.
This is a specialized rubber that actually is the kind of the base of the hover.
Yeah, it's the soles of your shoes, the foundation of the hovercraft. Without these, the hovercraft wouldn't hover properly.
I don't know if you can give me an exact number, but by you guys doing this here on the base as opposed to ordering them from somewhere overseas, you're saving like a couple $100,000?
Yeah, like from England, if you buy these are $800 a piece each. We build them, all manufacturers, all our costs in for about $120. So it's huge cost saving. And we've always done it at this base since '68, because that's where the big expense is because these are known costs and you have to do them every 800 hours. So we've done it over just since '68. We built them ourselves here. We've done it by, you can see the old templates that we used to have, all cut out by hand. But the machine has a computer program now, and it paid the first run of fingers for 1 run for 113, basically paid for the machine. So it's really cost effective. And this is called the skirt shop, where the hovercraft is surrounded. It's called the hovercraft skirt. So this is where all the maintenance happens to the skirt. The overhead beams are where we hang certain components up and we repair them ourselves here. So we don't send anything back offshore. It's all done here in Richmond, right here. And all our suppliers are all local for all the hardware and all the manufacturing. It's all, we don't go anything offshore, it's all here.
Well, this is really cool. Paul has taken me into, I guess I would call it the cockpit, but it's not the cockpit, is it, of one of your hovercrafts?
Yeah, the old days, I mean, the hovercraft came out of the aircraft industry, but now we call it the control cabin.
Control cabin, like that.
Yeah, that's where we actually control. In the marine world, it'll be called the wheelhouse, but we like it. It's defined as control cabin. So
this is so cool because we're about 50, 60 yards from the water, and you guys, it's almost like you're just dropping a boat down, like you'd see people with their commercial and personal boats. But you guys hover right down in the water. Explain how that happens.
Well, the dynamics of the hovercraft for high speed, we have to overcome some dynamics of water dynamics, and for speed, what's called below hump speed, which is we push the weight of the hovercraft, is called a tsunami. If we're under 13 knots, we push that water forward. So it creates a lot of wake. So what we do with the advantage of the hovercraft is the beauty of having the slope ramp. By the time we're on hover and we hit the bottom of that ramp, we're probably over our hump speed, which is probably about 25 knots. So that we're basically what you'd call a vessel on plane, or an aircraft to be like we're just leaving the ground. That's our optimum speed. So that's what we why the ramp is sloped that way. By the time we hit the bottom of the ramp, we're fully on full hover mode, and we don't have that big bow weight of the water pushing, unlike a conventional vessel where we're always pushing the weight.
Right.
This is where when it lifts up, it's on full hover and we're at full speed. So.
You know what's amazing too is we were talking earlier about your attention to the environment compared to say 50 years ago, and what's great about these modern day hovercrafts is they're very sensitive to the environment.
Yes, the footprint, like 40 to 50 pounds per square foot, is actually, if we're over the mud flats, if you were to measure, it's at 40 to 50 pounds per square foot. Now a human, say I'm like 200 pounds, I'm 200 pounds in a square foot. That's my weight. So it's like a quarter of the weight of an actual, like for any kind of impact with any of the flood or any of the sea life that lives on it. We're no impact. Of course, we're suspended off the water in any obstacle as well, so we don't create any, like a conventional vessel has a propeller in the water. Right. It creates sound. There's effluent that comes off the ship. We're totally suspended, so there's no acoustics that are driven into the water. And back in the days, back in the early development of hovercraft, they used them actually as minesweepers because there was no sound underwater that could trigger the mine. So they actually went over mines purposely and disarmed them that way. So that's one of the beauties of the hovercraft. And of course, there's no wake at high speed, so that's why you see all the banks and the estuary over here, and that island, which is a bird sanctuary. They've studied this over the years, and we've had, it's called finding of no significant impact. So compared to a conventional vessel, in a conventional vessel you need docks, and you have you impact with pilings, and there's certain environmental implications with that. I mean, just to get a dock approval these days probably takes about 7 years of the environmental
in this
impact
city,
statement.
yes,
yeah, because you notice our docks at the base. We have a small dock out front, but it's all it's graded, so it allows the light to get in for the eelgrass to survive.
Right.
So I mean, we're pretty environmental conscious here because we're part of the Coast Guard, and that's our mandate to protect the environment.
One of the other things you mentioned, we're for people that may not live in this area, we are surprisingly close. I didn't realize we were this close to a very large international airport, of course, YVR.
Sure.
God forbid you do have a plane accident, incident, a crash, what have you. This kind of ship machinery allows you to get into areas that you may not be able to get into. You were talking to me earlier off camera about that crash out of Miami into the Everglades, where they didn't have something like this and couldn't get to the people.
That's right. Yeah, we're trained for that. We have in these containers, you can see it says YVR life rafts over in those buildings there. They're all set up for a mass casualty event at the airport here. We're all trained. That gets deployed on the hovercraft, and we can be out at the end of the runway there, called Victor Beacon, in a matter of minutes.
So, again, regular ship would be too shallow for a regular boat.
You couldn't get in.
Yeah.
They've tried. They did studies. People got stuck in the mud. The fire department used all different kinds of vehicles. Kind of like big mud vehicles with big balloon tires. They all sank in the mud. So the only thing is this conventional this vessel is the hovercraft.
Hey, we should we're going to wrap the interview up, of course, here on the hovercraft, but we should also mention this is something that you guys are very proud of. You've been here since 1968.
Correct.
First female hovercraft pilot. Am I right on that?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the world or North America, but she was here.
Yeah. And you should give a shout out to the guy that was here at the time that really had prophetic modern thinking for back then in terms of inclusion.
One of the first original OICs from the base, 1968, Captain John McGrath. He was influential in developing the technology and diversity of search and rescue personnel in the Coast Guard itself, because predominantly it was a male-orientated industry back then, all the services, but he was kind of ahead of his time to have that inclusion factor in, and there were some documentaries written about it and stuff, and and she ended up being, from here she went on to be one of the BC ferry captains.
That's fabulous. Again, for 1968, that's forward thinking. And we should wish a happy birthday. He's in his 80th year, so he's still
he's turning 80 on April the 20th.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for the time here today. We're wrapping up the interview here on the hovercraft. It's just been fantastically enlightening to get your insight. I mean, as I said at the beginning of the interview, your guys are like, you don't always see us, but we're there. And the amount of things you guys do that the average citizen probably doesn't realize, it's been great to get an insight into what you guys do. Continued success and safety to you and your crew.
Yes.
And thank you for ending in this really cool operation here today. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, like our Coast Guard motto is safety first, service always. So that's what we do.
You get the last word.
Okay.